A professor, a CEO, and a janitor are in a forest when they discover a magic fairy. The fairy says, "I will give you what you most desire if you do someone else's job for a day." The professor says, "I'll be an elementary school teacher. What can be so hard about teaching a bunch of 6-year-olds how to read?" So he is teleported into a classroom. After a few minutes, all the kids screaming gets on his nerves, so he throws all his supplies and gives up. The CEO says, "I'll be a waiter. All you do is carry food back and forth. This'll be a breeze." So he is teleported to a restaurant. After about an hour, all the annoying customers drive him insane, so he smashes his plates on the ground and gives up. The janitor says, "I'll be an artist." So he is transported to an art facility. He glues all the classroom supplies and shattered plates to a canvas, then sells it for $1 billion. The fairy asks the janitor how he was so clever. The janitor says, "I got a master's degree in art." A large apartment building is on fire, and people are trapped. The first firefighters on scene notice that a couple is in a window 10 stories up, frantically waving their arms. They have a baby, and the smoke and fire are getting thick. The firefighters know that their ladder can't reach that high and desperately try to come up with a plan. A bystander, seeing this predicament, runs down the block to a house he knows. In this house lives John McCoy, one of the greatest NFL receivers to ever play the game. They run back to the fire, and John positions himself below the building. The parents throw the baby. As the baby flies through the air, everybody watches. John lines up for the catch. He finds himself flashing back to the Super Bowl when he caught the game-winning touchdown. He sees the baby coming, and with one smooth motion, he safely catches the baby. The crowd goes wild, the firefighters applaud, and John, never one to shy from the spotlight, immediately spikes the baby and does a celebratory dance. A girl with a tight skirt tries to get on a bus. In a crowded city at a busy bus stop, a woman who was waiting for a bus was wearing a tight leather skirt. As the bus stopped and it was her turn to get on, she became aware that her skirt was too tight to allow her leg to come up to the height of the first step of the bus. Slightly embarrassed and with a quick smile to the bus driver, she reached behind her to unzip her skirt a little, thinking that this would give her enough slack to raise her leg. Again, she tried to take the step, only to discover she still couldn't. So, a little more embarrassed, she once again reached behind her to unzip her skirt a little more. For the second time, she attempted the step, and once again, much to her chagrin, she could not raise her leg. With a little smile to the driver, she again reached behind to unzip a little more and again was unable to make the step. About this time, a large Texan who was standing behind her picked her up easily by the waist and placed her gently on the step of the bus. She went ballistic and turned to the would-be Samaritan and screeched, "How dare you touch my body? I don't even know who you are." The Texan smiled and drawled, "Well, ma'am, normally I would agree with you, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I kind of figured we are friends." A man is taking a jog in the forest. He realizes he is lost after a while and soon sees another man jogging in the forest. The first man asks the second man for directions, and the second man says, "Sure, I have a truck we can take into the city." The first man agrees, thinking that the second man is camping nearby with his truck. The second man then squats a little and looks over at the first man. "Are you getting in?" he asks the first man. The first man realizes that this guy is crazy, but before he can refuse, the second man waves a gun at him, saying he will harm him if he doesn't get into the truck. The second man squats with the first man, and they begin running through the forest in a squat. They reach a security cabin in the forest where a police officer is standing outside. The officer approaches the 2 men and asks what's going on. The first man immediately tells the officer how he's being forced to ride in the truck and that the second man is insane. The officer nods, arrests the second guy, and tells the first man to come with him, and they'll drive into the city. "We'll take my motorcycle. It has a sidecar you can ride in," the officer tells the first man. The first man agrees. The police officer squats and looks at the first man. "Get in." "You can't stay out here. People just escaped from the psychiatric hospital at the edge of the forest and they'll find you," the officer tells the first man. The first man squats next to the officer and they begin to run together. "Damn!" the first man exclaims, squatting and running low to the ground. "I should have stayed in the truck." Once upon a time in a village, a man appeared and announced to the villagers that he would buy monkeys for $10 each. The villagers, seeing that there were many monkeys around, went out to the forest and started catching them. The man bought thousands at $10, and as supply started to diminish, the villagers stopped their effort. He further announced that he would now buy at $20. This renewed the efforts of the villagers, and they started catching monkeys again. Soon the supply diminished even further, and people started going back to their farms. The offer increased to $25 each, and the supply of monkeys became so little that it was an effort to even see a monkey, let alone catch it. The man now announced that he would buy monkeys at $50. However, since he had to go to the city on some business, his assistant would now buy on behalf of him. In the absence of the man, the assistant told the villagers, "Look at all these monkeys in the big cage that the man has collected. I will sell them to you at $35, and when the man returns from the city, you can sell them to him for $50 each." The villagers rounded up all their savings and bought all the monkeys. They never saw the man nor his assistant, only monkeys everywhere. Now you have a better understanding of how the cryptocurrency market works. Three friends are in a hotel room in Soviet Russia. The first two men open a bottle of vodka, while the third is tired and goes straight to bed. He is unable to sleep, however, as his increasingly drunk friends tell political jokes loudly. After a while, the tired man gets frustrated and walks downstairs for a smoke. He stops in the lounge and asks the receptionist to bring tea to their room in 5 minutes. The man walks back into the room, joins the table, leans towards a power outlet, and speaks into it. "Comrade Major, we want some tea in room 62, please." His friends laugh at the joke until there is a knock on the door. The receptionist brings a teapot. His friends fall silent and pale, horrified of what they just witnessed. The party is dead, and the man goes to sleep. After a good night's rest, the man wakes up and notices his friends are gone. Surprised, he walks downstairs and asks the receptionist where they went. The nervous receptionist whispers that the KGB came and took them before dawn. The man is horrified. He wonders why he was spared. The receptionist responds, "Well, Comrade Major did quite like your tea joke." A policeman is driving past a roadside apple stand when he notices the sign. "Apple seeds, guaranteed to make you smarter, $20 per seed." He pulls over and informs the vendor that it is fraud and false advertising to make absurd claims like this. "No, no, no," the vendor tells the cop. "My apples are a special variety, a scientific miracle. Buy just one seed, eat it, and you will notice an increase in intelligence. If not, I promise to refund your $20. "All right," says the cop. "But if this doesn't work, I'm shutting your operation down." He hands over a $20 bill, takes the seed, chews it up, and waits for it to kick in. After a few moments, he says, "You know, even if you're not lying, I could have bought a whole bag of your apples and had enough seeds to last me months." "Ah, yes," says the vendor. "It's working already." A professor travels to Africa to live with a primitive tribe and spends years with them, teaching them all about the wonders of science, mathematics, and formatting Reddit comments so they get the most upvotes. One day, the chief's wife gives birth to a white child. The word spreads, and the entire tribe is in shock. The chief pulls the professor aside and says, "Look, you're the only white man we've ever seen around here, and this woman just gave birth to a white child. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what happened." The professor replied, "No, chief, you're mistaken. What you have here is a natural occurrence, what we in the civilized world call an albino. Look at that field over there. All of the sheep are white except for one black one. Nature does this on occasion." The chief was silent for a moment, then said, "Tell you what, you don't say anything more about that sheep, and I won't say anything more about that white child." A boy named Carol had a particularly rough childhood because of his uncommon name. He always got a lot of teasing and abuse at school. Eventually, he overcame his hang-up and married his high school sweetheart. When their first child was born, he let his wife name her. She named the baby girl Love, inspired by the same spirit as Carol's unique name. Unfortunately, Love grew up and endured much of the same teasing that Carol did because of her strange name. She came home from school one day and screamed at her dad, asking why he gave her such a stupid name. Carol took the blame to protect his wife and apologized. In a fit of rage, Love shot him with her dart gun and ran away. Minutes later, Carol's wife came home and saw him lying on the ground. "What happened?" she asked, running to him. He waved her closer and whispered, "Shot through the heart and you're to blame. Darling, you gave Love a bad name." A college student wanted to sit next to one of his teachers at lunch. However, the teacher looked at the student with an arrogant face and said, "A swan shan't be friends with a pig." "Then I shall fly on," answered the student with a smile. The teacher was clearly vexed by the cheeky reply and decided to do everything in his power to fail the student. At the oral exam, he gave the student the hardest questions, but the student had amazing answers for everything. Therefore, hoping he could still fail his victim, the teacher asked him a trickier question. "You're walking on a road and you find two bags. One contains gold, the other cleverness. Which bag do you choose?" "The gold." "Unfortunately, I don't agree. I'd choose cleverness because that's more important than money." "Everyone would choose what they don't have," says the student. The teacher turns red, and he's so angry he writes ass on the student's paper. The student leaves without looking at the paper. However, he returns shortly, gives back his paper, and says, "Excuse me, sir, you signed my paper, but you forgot to give me my grade." A college girl really wants to buy a monkey, but she knows her dad will not send the money for such a pet. So she emails her dad and asks for money to buy a bicycle. He sends the money, and she buys the cute little monkey. After about a week, she notices that clumps of hair are falling out of the little fellow. Unfortunately, she doesn't have the money to take the monkey to the vet, so she does internet searches for hours but cannot find any answers. Finally, in desperation, she emails her father saying, "Help! All of the hair is falling out of my monkey. Please send money." And her father emails back, "Sell the goddamn bicycle." Bob was on a flight when he looked at the stunning air hostess and said, "You look just like my wife." The air hostess frowned. "Stop talking nonsense." Bob grinned. "Wow, even your attitude matches." 3 weddings were occurring at the same hotel one weekend. After the ceremonies and wedding meals, all 3 grooms happened to be at the bar at the same time, and they got talking about how they were looking forward to their wedding nights. The first groom said, "Hey, we should let each other know how we got on. How about at breakfast, the number of pieces of toast we order is the number of times we, consummated our marriages?" The other 2 grooms agreed, and they went on their way, partying until the small hours, whereupon they took their respective brides to their respective rooms for their respective wedding nights. The next morning at breakfast, they all gave each other little smiles until the waiter asked the first groom how many pieces of toast he would like. "Just 3 pieces of toast for me," he announced, and the other 2 grooms gave him appreciative nods. The second groom, when asked by the waiter, said in a slightly louder voice, "I shall have 5, yes 5, pieces of toast, please." And with a big grin, he looked around and saw the other 2 grooms winking and raising their glasses of orange juice in his direction. Finally, the waiter approached the third groom and asked him how many pieces of toast he would like. The man answered, "I will have 7 pieces of toast, please. And can you make 2 of them brown?" To celebrate their 7th anniversary, a man and his wife spend the weekend at an exclusive golf resort. He is a pretty good golfer, but she only just started. When they head down to the golf course after a lavish lunch and a bottle of champagne, they notice a beautiful mansion a couple of 100 yards behind the first hole. "Let's be extra careful, honey," the husband says. "If we damage that house over there, it'll cost us a fortune." The wife nods, tees off, and bang! Sends the ball right through the window of the mansion. "Jesus Christ," the husband says. "I told you to watch out for that house. All right, let's go up there, apologize, and see what the damage is." They walk up to the house and knock on the door. "Come on in," a voice in the house says. The couple opens the door and enters the foyer. The living room is a mess. There are pieces of glass all over the floor and a broken bottle near the window. A man sits on the couch. When the couple enters the room, he gets up and says, "Are you the guys who just broke my window?" Yeah," the husband replies. "Sorry about that." "Not at all. It's I who has to thank you. I'm a genie and was trapped in that bottle for 1,000 years. You've just released me. To show my gratitude, I'm allowed to grant each of you a wish, but I'll require one favor in return." "Really? That's great," the husband says. "I want $1 million a year for the rest of my life." "No problem. That's the least I can do." "And you, what do you want?" the genie asks, looking at the wife. "I want a house in every country of the world," the wife says. The genie smiles. "Consider it done." "And what's this favor we must grant in return, genie?" the husband asks. "Well, since I've been trapped in that stupid bottle for the last 1,000 years, I haven't had sex with a woman for a very long time. My wish is to sleep with your wife." The husband scratches his head, looks at the wife and says, "Well, we did get a lot of money in all these houses, honey, so I guess I'm fine if it's all right with you." The genie and the wife disappear in a room upstairs and make love for an hour while the husband stays in the living room. When they are done, the genie rolls over, looks at the wife and asks, "How old exactly is your husband?" 31, she replies. "And he still believes in genies? That's amazing." One dark night in the small town of Garfield, New Jersey, a fire started inside the local sausage factory. In a blink, the building was engulfed in flames. The alarm went out to all the fire departments for miles around. When the first volunteer firefighters appeared on the scene, the sausage company president rushed to the fire chief and said, "All of our secret sausage recipes are in the vault in the center of the plant. They have to be saved, so I will donate $50,000 to the fire company that brings them out and delivers them to me." But the roaring flames held the firefighters off. Soon more fire departments had to be called in because the situation became desperate. As the firemen arrived, the president shouted out that the offer to extricate the secret recipes was now $100,000 to the fire department that could save them. Suddenly, from up the road, a lone siren was heard as another fire truck came into sight. It was the fire engine of the nearby Lodi, NJ Volunteer Fire Department, composed mainly of Italian firefighters over the age of 65. To everyone's amazement, the little run-down fire engine, operated by these Italian firefighters, passed fire engines parked outside the plant and drove straight into the middle of the inferno. Outside, the other firemen watched in amazement as the Italian old-timers jumped off and began to fight the fire as if they were fighting to save their own lives. Within a short time, the Lodi old-timers had extinguished the fire and saved the secret recipes. The grateful sausage company president joyfully announced that for such a superhuman accomplishment, he was raising the reward to $200,000 and walked over to personally thank each of the brave elderly Italian firefighters. A TV news crew rushed in after capturing the event on film. The on-camera reporter asked the Italian fire chief, "What are you going to do with all that money?" "Well," said Chief Pasquale de Lucinelavanti, the 70-year-old fire chief, "the first thing we're going to do is fix the brakes on the goddamn truck." The wife came home early and found her husband in their bedroom making love to a very attractive young woman, and she was upset. "You are a disrespectful pig," she cried. "How dare you do this to me? A faithful wife, the mother of your children. I'm leaving you. I want a divorce right away." And the husband replied, "Hang on just a minute, love, so at least I can tell you what happened." "Go ahead," she sobbed, "but they'll be the last words you'll say to me." And the husband began. "Well, I was getting into the car to drive home, and this young lady here asked me for a lift. She looked so down and out and defenseless that I took pity on her and let her into the car. I noticed that she was very thin, not well dressed, and very dirty. She told me that she hadn't eaten for 3 days. So, in my compassion, I brought her home and warmed up the enchiladas I made for you last night, the ones you wouldn't eat because you're afraid you'll put on weight. The poor thing devoured them in moments. Since she needed a good cleanup, I suggested a shower, and while she was doing that, I noticed her clothes were dirty and full of holes. So I threw them away. Then, as she needed clothes, I gave her the expensive designer jeans that you have had for a few years but don't wear because you say they are too tight. I also gave her the underwear that was your anniversary present, which you don't wear because you said I don't have good taste. I found the sexy blouse my sister gave you for Christmas that you don't wear just to annoy her. And I also donated those boots you bought at the expensive boutique and don't wear because someone at work has a pair just like them." The husband took a quick breath and continued. "She was so grateful for my understanding and help that as I walked her to the door, she turned to me with tears in her eyes and said, 'Please, do you have anything else that your wife doesn't use?'" On a royal morning, King Fancy Britches decided he needed a break from the stress of running a kingdom, so naturally he grabbed his favorite fishing rod and told the queen, "Darling, we're going fishing." Before heading out, he called in Sir Forecast-a-Lot, the royal weather wizard. Well, meteorologist, but wizard sounds cooler. "Tell me, O sky whisperer," the king asked, "will it rain today?" Sir Forecast-a-Lot, after checking his scrolls and licking a finger in the wind, proudly declared, "Nay, your majesty, not a single drop shall fall from the heavens for days." Confident, the king and queen hopped into their royal carriage and trotted off. But halfway to Lake Fancy Fish, they passed old Farmer Ned riding a donkey named Kevin. Farmer Ned raised an eyebrow and said, "Your Majesty, if I were you, I'd turn that fancy ride around. Kevin's ears are drooping. That means rain. Big rain. Biblical rain." The king, amused but polite, replied, "Thank you, peasant, but I trust my highly paid university-certified top-tier weatherman. Droopy donkey ears, please. That's not science." And off they went. 15 minutes later, boom, the sky opened up like a drama queen with trust issues. Rain fell so hard the queen's wig tried to swim away. The royal robes turned into wet blankets, and even the royal ducks were like, "Yo, this is too much." The king and queen returned to the palace looking like soggy towels from a medieval car wash. The royal entourage tried not to laugh. They failed. Enraged, King Fancy Britches fired Sir Forecast-a-Lot on the spot. "You're out, soaked and sacked." Then he summoned Farmer Ned and offered him the prestigious new role of royal weather guru. But Farmer Ned shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, I'm not a weatherman. I just look at Kevin. If his ears droop, it's gonna rain. That donkey's never wrong." The king, being a man of action, and now mildew, hired Kevin the donkey immediately. And that, dear reader, is how the tradition of hiring asses into positions of power officially began, and continues to this very day. A husband and wife are strolling down the high street when the wife stops dead in her tracks, eyes glued to a stunning diamond necklace sparkling in a jewelry store window. "Go inside with me," she pleads, tugging his arm. "I just want to look." They head in, she tries it on, spins around dramatically, clearly head over heels. The husband sighs. He can't afford it right now. "But one day," he says, "that necklace will be yours." Fast forward a month. The wife's home, pacing like a detective with a hunch. It's late, no husband. She grabs her phone and dials with fury. "Where the hell are you?" she snaps. His voice comes through, calm and smooth. "Baby, remember that jewelry store where you saw the diamond necklace and absolutely fell in love with it?" Her face softens instantly. "Of course I do," she says, heart fluttering. "And you said it would be mine someday." "Exactly," he says. "Well, I'm in the bar right next to that shop." A married lady goes to her doctor for her annual checkup and everything is good. In her conversation at the end of all the tests and examinations with the doctor, she expressed a concern about her husband. "As you know, I raise champion golden retrievers, and one evening I was making their food. I had a big pot on the stove simmering, and my husband came home and got a big ladle full and ate it. I told him it was for the dogs, but he said it was delicious and insisted that is what he wanted for dinner that night. Well, I make the dogs food every week, and every time I make a new batch, my husband eats it for dinner. I'm concerned about him eating the dog's food." The doctor proceeded to ask her what was in the dog's food and how it was prepared. After she describes in detail the ingredients and the preparation, the doctor finally says, "I don't think there is anything that can hurt him. I wouldn't encourage him to eat it, but it sounds safe enough to eat." A year goes by, and the woman goes back to the doctor for her annual checkup. As was standard procedure, the doctor sits down with the woman and discusses the test results. As he is going through her file, he sees a note from the previous year regarding her husband's propensity to eat the dog food made by her. He asks her, So is your husband still eating the dog food you prepare? Oh, no, doctor, my husband died. Oh, my lord, I'm so sorry. It wasn't because of the dog food, was it? Well, not directly, no, not directly. What happened? Well, the lady said in a very sad and grief-stricken voice, he got hit by a car when he was sitting in the middle of the road licking his balls. A man wakes up in a mysterious room. There's nothing in it but a ladder leading upward and a $10 bill on the floor. Suddenly, a disembodied voice echoes, "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." The man eyes the $10 and scoffs. "That's it, I'm climbing." He climbs the ladder. On the next floor, he finds $1,000 and a moderately attractive woman smiling at him. Again, the voice calls out, "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." Tempting. But he climbs again. Now he finds $50,000, a very attractive woman, the deed to a cozy house, and a job that pays twice his current salary. He pauses. Then the voice repeats, "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." He swallows hard and climbs again. This time it's overwhelming. $1 million in cash, bank records showing a net worth of $50 million, keys to his dream car, a mansion, and 2 breathtakingly beautiful women beckoning him. As he takes a step forward, the voice rings out once more, "Accept what is offered, or climb the ladder to success." He hesitates. Everything he's ever wanted is right here, but ambition whispers louder. Slowly, he turns and climbs once more. This ladder feels different, longer, darker. The air gets heavier. A foul stench grows with each step. Finally, he reaches the next floor and pulls himself into the gloom. There's no money, no women, no mansion, just a dim room and a figure hunched in the corner. The figure strikes a match and lights a cigarette. As the smoke curls up, the man recoils. The figure is enormous, disheveled, at least 400 pounds, and smells like he's never even heard of soap. The man stares in shock as the figure grins and steps closer. "Welcome," he says with a wheeze. "I'm Sess." A police officer was interrogating 3 blondes in training to become detectives. To test their observational skills, he showed the first blonde a picture of a suspect for 5 seconds, then hid it. "Officer, this is your suspect. How would you recognize him?" The first blonde confidently replied, "That's easy. We'll catch him fast because he only has one eye." The officer sighed. "That's because the picture is a profile shot. You're only seeing one side of his face." Shaking his head, he showed the picture to the second blonde for 5 seconds. "Officer, this is your suspect. How would you recognize him?" The second blonde giggled, flipped her hair, and said, "Oh, he'd be super easy to catch. He only has one ear." The officer clenched his jaw. "Seriously? It's a profile shot. Of course you can only see one ear." Growing frustrated, he turned to the third blonde, took a deep breath, and in a firm voice said, "Look carefully. This is your suspect. How would you recognize him? And please, think before you answer." The third blonde studied the picture intently. After a few seconds, she said, The suspect wears contact lenses." The officer blinked in surprise. He had no idea if that was true. "Wait here," he muttered and left the room. After checking the suspect's file, he returned, beaming. "Incredible! It's true. The suspect does wear contact lenses. How on earth did you figure that out?" The blonde grinned and said, "Easy. He can't wear regular glasses. He only has one eye and one ear." A young woman had a serious problem. It took her forever to go pee. Sometimes she'd sit on the toilet for minutes, struggling to squeeze out even a drop. It made her incredibly self-conscious, to the point where she was afraid to date, even though she was quite attractive. Fed up, she went to the doctor, who said the issue wasn't physical. "I've heard hypnosis can help with these kinds of things," the doctor suggested. So, she went to a hypnotist. He assured her, "No problem. We can fix this. All we need is a command word that will signal your body to act. Make sure it's a word people don't use in everyday conversation, or it could cause confusion." After some thought, the young woman decided on the word urinate. She figured the only time anyone would say it was in medical settings. The hypnotist did his magic. Later, eager to test it, The woman runs to the bathroom and nervously whispers, "Urinate." To her delight, it worked right away. Excited, she sets up a date with a guy she's had her eye on. They meet at a fancy restaurant, enjoying dinner and drinks. After a couple of drinks, they're both feeling good. Wanting to know what he really thinks of her, the woman asks, "Be honest, what do you think of me?" He smiles and says, "I think you're smart, funny, and I love your laugh." She leans in closer, grinning. "You haven't said anything about my appearance." He shrugs and replies, "Well, you're very pretty. Definitely not a supermodel, but that's a good thing. On a scale from 1 to 10, I'd give you an 8. She grins, feeling flattered, but then, under her breath, whispers, "Urinate." Immediately, the man jumps up, eyes wide. "What the hell?" Confused, she asks, "What's wrong?" He stammers, "Well, I wasn't expecting you to go that fast."